Welcome to our weekly roundup of key economic and business developments in Sri Lanka. I'm Nishani Figuera, and here are this week's top stories. Deadline for domestic bondholders to submit exchange offers end. Lending rates to reduce as bank's statutory reserve ratio halved. Daily tourist arrivals break through 5,000 mark. In our main story this week, the deadline for eligible treasury bond holders to submit offers to exchange their rupee-denominated bonds for new rupee treasury bonds ends on Friday. Extension was to have provided for amendments to the Central Bank Act, Appropriation Bill and tax regulations to allow for debt optimization. Last week, the Ministry of Finance said that more than 94% of remaining holders of dollar-denominated Sri Lanka development bonds had agreed to exchange for longer-term rupee bonds. On Tuesday, the central bank reduced the statutory reserve ratio applicable on all rupee deposit liabilities of commercial banks by 200 basis points. The reduction will be effective from the 16th of August and is slated to release around 200 billion rupees of liquidity to the domestic money market. The regulator stated that this would enable a further downward adjustment in the market lending rates. In June, credit to the private sector picked up for the first time since May 2022 as policy rates were cut twice since May. Ali Sabri, Minister of Foreign Affairs, ended his visit to Iran. Minister Sabri's visit was to strengthen trade ties with Iran, particularly to revitalize Sri Lanka's tea in Iran. Sanctions by the United States affected payments to Iran for Sri Lanka's fuel purchases. As a result, the two nations are exploring this payment by supplying tea to Iran. During this mission, Minister Sabri extended a courtesy call on the Iranian President, Dr. Saeed Ebrahim Raisi. Dr. Raisi said that Iran is ready to share its scientific and technological knowledge and expertise with Sri Lanka, adding the need to activate the Joint Commission for Economic Cooperation between the two countries. Sri Lanka is currently experiencing a significant drought in many parts of the country, resulting in falling water levels in reservoirs. According to news reports, irrigation engineers say the Udavalave Reservoir, with a capacity of 217,800 acre-feet, has now only 0.5% of total capacity. Situation was aggravated as water from the Samanala River was released for the southern province farmers to harvest paddy. According to Kanchana Wijesekara, Minister of Power and Energy, electricity will need to be purchased to ensure an uninterrupted power supply from the 15th of August onwards, warning that failure to do so will result in at least 3-hour power cuts in certain areas. Meanwhile, 15 megawatts of wind power operated by Windforce was added to the national grid this week. The Cabinet granted approval to amend Employees Provident Fund Act to ensure a minimum of 9% annual interest rate to members. This follows conditions of the domestic debt optimization, where maturity of treasury bonds held by superannuation funds were extended with a step-down coupon structure of 12% until 2025 and 9% until maturity. Further, an amendment to the Inland Revenue Act was also tabled in Parliament to raise taxes on pension funds to 30% from the current 14%. In our weekly tourism update, during the first 6 days of August, 30,303 tourists arrived in the country. This pushed the year-to-date visit numbers to almost 800,000, an increase of at least 60% from a year earlier. Daily arrivals in August broke through the 5,000 mark for the first time since February 2020. India continued to be the main source market during the month. However, its share of arrivals fell to 15% from 17%, signaling an increase in diversification of source markets. Now let's take a look at the weekly movement of the All Share Price Index and the S&P SL 20 Index at the Colombo Stock Exchange. The Sri Lankan rupee was volatile against the dollar this week, with the central bank's indicative mid-spot rate ranging between 318 and 321. And that's a wrap for this week. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel at the link below for regular updates on economic and business developments in Sri Lanka. Until we see you again next week, thank you for watching. Stay safe.